Well, good day, Lionhearts. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. I'm doing great. We're coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada, staying with my friend Todd Fisher and Catherine Hickland. And today I was drinking my coffee and Todd walked by and said, "You want to come to the studio with me today? I got some stuff I want to show you. I think you'd want to film this." So we're going on a little adventure with Todd today. Daze with Jordan the Lion. You all, it begins right now. So before we leave, I was showing you Debbie Reynolds' autograph collection last vlog, and I missed a couple. Here's Sidney Poitier, cast-signed poster from Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson's autograph right there. John Travolta, Bruce Willis, and Uma Thurman. Clark Gable right over here. This is kind of a cool one because the inscription says, looks like it says either no blonde or number blonde. Looks like it says no blonde, best wishes, Clark Gable. Best wishes always, Clark Gable. I took that to mean he was saying like, you're no real blonde. And then over here we have Mickey Rooney. Yeah, somehow I missed all of these. There's a lot of autographs in this place. And then here in the bathroom, I was in here taking a, well, we'll say it, a pee. And I looked up and there's an autograph picture of Elvis. How did I miss that? A little faded, but that's definitely signed by Elvis. And here are some of the lyrics for My Way by Paul Anka, and he even signed it out to Debbie. Todd's gonna show us some camera equipment from famous movies. He films quite a bit here.
This is a pro sight. It's a hard sight. You see how it's got the infinity wall? So you see the way the wall, the carpet's here to protect the floor because you don't want to have to paint the floor all the time.
Yeah.
But you notice how there's a nice even curve.
Ramp, yeah.
If you take this away and you stand there, it's a little disorientating because you don't know where the infinity line is. But that's what's called a cyc wall. So the curtains can come around. You can make this a green screen wall very quickly as well. Let's see if I got my. So if you wanted it, you see how the light immediately goes green.
Yeah.
And then you can change the color temperature on the room. That's 3,200 degrees. And then you can bring it all the way up to daylight. Now it's all daylight balanced. So you have a lot of control on the lighting. You know, in a stage environment, that's what it's all about. And then here's kind of a cool thing. This is an old MGM 10K light. This is literally from the 30s. Probably worked on like every movie you could think of. But inside is an LED panel like you see up in the ceiling. And it still has the old Fresnel. Now the Fresnel, or Fresnel, is actually a lens that amplifies the light, but it also spreads it a certain way. It was invented for lighthouses. Think about that. So in the old days, we didn't have electricity, so there were lighthouses, and all they had was like oil lamps, candle power, and they invented these Fresnel lenses to go around the oil lamps, and then they would rotate it, and that way the ships could see it. Of course, if you think about the brightness, it was probably nothing compared to electricity. Later, even with the electricity, though, Fresnels were standard. Hollywood picked up on it, probably in the 20s, started using them to amplify and spread the light. So if you look up close here, come over here, you can see the pattern. There's like grooves here, so it spreads the light, and then you can move the light source back and forth to pin spot the light. This is they'd be shooting movies back in the 30s, like we were talking about Technicolor movies. They would have 20 of these on the stage.
Could have been The Wizard of Oz. Could have been Gone with the Wind.
Oh, well, no, this light likely worked on all those. If you look at the top, it says MGM up there. That's very rare. Not even, this light was actually manufactured by Mole Richardson. Oh, yeah. And it's a 10,000 watt light. Think about that, 10,000. Now this is set up for LEDs, but in the day, There's a bulb in there that uses 10,000 watts. Now, you think about a big light in your house, you got a 100-watt light.
Yeah, and how bright that can be.
Studio light, 1,000 watts, 10,000 watts. It was blinding. But it took that much light, literally, to bring out those colors in that film to be able to absorb. So there was also something else that came with all that light, heat. So the actors were constantly having to get their makeup touched up, and Max Factor had to develop special makeup
that didn't melt.
That didn't melt under the bright lights.
Wow,
so it's
how hot would those have been, like, as a performer for you to be?
Like, if nobody would have been this close to it, you'd jack this up. Like, normally with a light like this, you'd put it behind a piece of silk or something, but even at that, you'd want to be several feet away. And even at that, you would feel the energy from that light. But you can see how beautifully this stuff is made. This is all bronze. So that it's a crank-up stand. Think of that, this thing's 90 years old, the light and the stand. So, and we've restored these. I have quite a few of them back at the other studio. But
there's the Mole Richardson logos on the side. It's a real standard of excellence.
Well, I'll show you a different light in the other room, but the MGM is sort of the telltale. These are old camera dollies over here. So the movies we were talking about, Cleopatra, this camera Dolly was used on Cleopatra, but it can be used contemporarily too. It's a very solid Dolly. It was never polished out like that. Buck did that. It was sort of a dull aluminum color, more like this. You really wouldn't want it reflecting a lot of light, ideally, and so that was sort of a thing. This is an old geared head. The geared heads are still being used this day. It's a way a camera moves. But nothing can move as smooth as that. So here you have like a 40-pound camera on here, and this thing can really travel on its own. It shows you how well balanced that is. But a geared head is not, most people like to use fluid heads these days to move a camera, but if you would just wanted a perfect pan left or right, how do you beat that?
Yeah, and a lot of times, don't they have one individual who that's just their job, is just to move that, not even the cameraman sometimes?
No, the camera operator would operate what's called the wheels. So he would be responsible for, moving the camera up, down, left, right. Your assistant cameraman would be doing the focus and the iris. So if there was a lighting change, he would make that adjustment. But if there was a focus pull, which is frequent, and what that means is, I don't know if you know the term depth of field, but if a person starts to come closer to the camera, the focus puller would have to adjust the lens to keep him in focus.
Yeah.
And that was actually all done with a tape measure, and it hooked on right here. You see this little
screw right here? Yeah.
Come over here. That is where you hooked on the tape measure, and that is where the film is. So that's the plane of where you want to get your focus plane, right from where the film goes through the gate. So if you look at this, you can see where that screw is right there on the film gate. That's the film gate right there. But this is a film, this was sort of a latter generation. This is a contemporary film camera, not an antique like a lot of the ones we've been looking at. But this is a contemporary camera, and you could shoot with this tomorrow. And this is probably one of the finest geared heads ever made.
So you're not opposed to retrofitting old cameras to be used now?
No, I think I encourage people, well, nobody's shooting film to speak of. A few people are, Quentin Tarantino, a few people shoot film. It's a bit of a waste depending upon what you're doing. I think VistaVision would be a format that you should shoot in if you're going to shoot film, because you do have the larger film emulsion area, and Tarantino's using 65 millimeters. So in that case, a digital camera would have a hard time competing with that. These are the digital cameras here. This is a body for a Blackmagic film style camera, and these handle. In fact, that's a PL mount on there. I believe it's not even the right mount. So these cameras are made for digital movies, and they have the ability to emulate film really well. I mean, this camera can pretty much do everything that camera over there can do.
Really?
Shockingly enough. Now this is set up right now for a studio configuration where it's hooked up into a control room upstairs. So for live television. So you kind of use it for live high-end TV. You see, this has got a television lens on it. So that's a TV lens, but a very high-end TV lens, but nonetheless. And this is a television viewfinder.
And for people that don't know, we were just talking about you handle, I said, 10 camera shoots, but you're like way more than that, because you do boxing events.
Our truck comes with 12 cameras. We own 16. digital cameras like this that can go onto the truck. We just finished doing the Canelo boxing match where we were doing all the Barstool commentary shows. But in order to do that, you have all your commentary cameras plus the whole fight.
Yeah.
So we had about 30 some cameras coming into the truck. So that can get complicated.
Plus you have to angle cameras all over the arena for every possible...
You wouldn't think a fight could have 30 cameras. I mean, really. I mean, it doesn't really. If you think about it, there's like 10 that are probably the most important. And even that's kind of pushing it. So I'm not sure I'm a philosopher who thinks you need 30 cameras to film a fight. But, you know, I mean, when you have those budgets...
Yeah, and you have access to them, why not, I guess?
It's an unlimited budget. You can see back in here, there's a camera crane up in there. That's more of a contemporary item. It extends out to about 25, 30 feet. It's got a motorized head, and that's designed for some of the shots of the thing. They call it a jib arm, or you know, a gimbal, and it's capable of moving. The camera moves nice and smooth and floats over your head. So that's a pretty cool feature.
A lot of times when you see a scene of them entering a town, they kind of float over the town like that with that kind of...
Yeah, and they have even bigger ones than this, of course. But that's big for in here. These ceilings at 30 some odd feet. That's still big. So these are more studio dollies for television. You know, they move back and forth and up and down, but this is more of a television dolly where that is a movie camera dolly. And if you come in the other room with me, I'll show you how this sort of evolved, because we have the Singing in the Rain dolly in here.
That I can't wait to see.
Yeah, so it's kind of a cool. So this is that's the Singing in the Rain dolly.
Wow.
That held a Technicolor camera. It's very early. I mean, compared to what you just saw, it looks, you know, old school. But, you know, it would have had the same type of geared head as the other ones have. You see how smooth they are? It's a very heavy, heavy, heavy camera. Now, this is John Ford's camera. So he was the famous Western director. And as you can see, this camera, you know, is also fully functional. Quite capable. It's got a lens on it. If you go in the movement, it's beautifully... You could run this thing tomorrow. But this dolly, compared to those other dollies, is a long way. I mean, this is early... you can see it shakes compared to the other one. I mean, you know, so it's not, I mean, they really, shall we say, improved on this. And then we were discussing earlier something pretty important, which was the Cinerama camera. So this is the Cinerama camera. And in a second, I'll bring it around.
That is
so there are
cool.
3 rolls of film going through it, locked onto one motor, and all 3 lenses are in the front.
Wow.
1, 2, 3, and you see the two. One's at me, one's facing the other way. But that's 3 cameras. One's there, and one's in the middle. And they're all being moved by one motor. So this motor is driving all 3 cameras simultaneously, pulling the film through. The lens is a fixed focal length lens. You cannot change the focal length on that lens. I want to say it's like I can't quite read it, but I forgot. I think it's like a 32 millimeter. But it doesn't matter what it is, because the field of view is so extraordinarily wide.
What movies would have been filmed on this for people that...
Well, How the West Was Won was filmed on this, the Brothers Grimm. There was a number of the early, of course, Cinerama. There was one called The Windjammer, which is an amazing sailing adventure. So some of the things that were done on this were purposely just sort of experience-oriented, travel logs.
Yeah.
Well, I tell the story that in these days in particular, in the 50s, nobody could afford to go all over the world and see all these exotic things. And so, and especially in this sort of huge experience format, because this thing is going to go on 100 feet of screen, you know, and it's full peripheral view. So you really are like there. And they chose these lenses because they emulated the same feeling I have when I look at you. It would be the same size. So nothing is exaggerated, except that it's up on this big screen, but it's sort of peripherally what I see. So whatever when you look straight ahead right now, what you feel and see is sort of what this emulates, and it's your full field of view. And we take you all around the world and show you these exotic things. So I think a lot of people were really there to go on a journey, to get out of their life and to go on a vacation in the theater for 90 minutes, 2 hours. and it was the most popular movie ever done. Now, when they did How the West Was Won, it was the first big feature film to be shot. Now, this is story-oriented all of a sudden. We're going to do a Western and tell the story of how the West was settled. And so my mother was chosen for one of the leads, but everybody's in the movie, from Jimmy Stewart on down. I mean, it's probably one of the most amazing casts ever. Ron Howard and many other people, from Kevin Costner, think that How the West Won it influenced them to make the films that they made. In the case of Ron Howard, Far and Away, and of course Costner with his Dances with Wolves. I mean, these movies were inspired by this How the West Was Won. And
you said it was really hard to show it in theaters because
you had to build a theater around it or modify an existing theater. But in this case, many of the theaters were built to do this, so it's very expensive. You couldn't retrofit most theaters to handle this. Some could, but like the Cinerama Dome in Los Angeles was literally built for this. So that's pretty remarkable. Henry Hathaway was the main director in the movie How the West Won. And, he got so enamored with my mother that he ended up giving her more and more and more stuff in the movie. And it wasn't intended to have any music, like singing stuff. My mother literally was just ad-libbing stuff, and they ended up filming these musical scenes. This was not even accounted for in her contract. So I have a supplemental contract from MGM having to address the music issues.
Yeah.
And she owns a piece of the music, performance-wise, from the film. And so there's a lot of interesting little things that happen. This movie, How the West Won, which I think the poster's at the other house. We're starting to go through in here right now and just put up other posters. We kind of have Carrie on this side, and we just are moving in a lot of my mom's movies. There's My Six Loves. We were talking about the Singing Nun guitar just the other day. So there's the poster from that.
Todd, how many theaters are equipped to show Cinerama these days, and how many cameras like this exist?
There were 5 of these cameras made, one of which was a prototype. But they were all used on the movie at one time or another. But they don't use them anymore. They're on loan to various museums. This is camera 5. You can see right here. So sometimes you can get a picture you can look at a picture inside of the production stills of How the West Won, and you can actually see the camera number.
That's really cool.
So it would have probably been 2, 3, 4, and 5 used. If you watch the Buffalo Stampede scene, just to give you an example, there's a shadow on the ground, and it's a tree shadow. And the buffalo come through, and there's a wagon there, and they just overrun the wagon and everything, stampede the whole thing. But if you look carefully in that shadow, you'll see that there's a camera on a platform in that tree.
No kidding.
The shadow's there because the camera didn't move. I have it on a geared head, but it never moved.
It's a heavy camera, isn't it?
Very crazy ass heavy. I mean, it's not movable. This is my own version of putting it, for display, but it's not movable. It's super heavy. Anyway.
He's whenever you are ready.
No, he can move it.
Here's a poster from a movie that Shelley Winters, my pal, and Debbie Reynolds made together, What's the Matter with Helen? Oh, wow, look at this. Debbie Reynolds studio sign.
This is 200 pounds.
Todd told me I could come upstairs and look around at some of the old signed photos and everything, and we're guessing these are all from Debbie Reynolds' dance studio. Look at this. A signed giant picture of Christopher Reeve as Superman. It says, Debbie, I can't thank you enough for your kind words about me and all you've done for Philip. Love, Christopher Reeve. That was pretty cool to find. Well, my friends, I hope you enjoyed our vlog today. This was a lot of fun. I thought it was really cool to get to see the actual Cinerama camera. I mean, I think it was probably 3-4 years ago, right when I first started vlogging, so maybe even 5 years ago, that we went to the Cinerama Dome. We talked about, the whole technology of Cinerama, and to actually see one today and have Todd go through and explain it all, I thought was just amazing. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. And if you're not subscribed, please do. Please hit the like button and please ring the bell for notifications. We'll see you all next time. Have a great night and goodbye.